And welcome once again to the Titus and Sergio Variety Hour podcast. This is our last one for 2017, our special Christmas edition. Now, you know it's our Christmas edition because fairly soon we're going to have Dennis Walter singing Hark the Herald Angels Sing. Now, normally I introduce myself and then I introduce the great Titus O'Reilly. Rarely do I ever speak on behalf of the pair of us because, you know, as you know, we both have our own thoughts and opinions on things. But I think I can safely say this time, on behalf of the pair of us at this time of year, at no stage, at any time, have either of us ever doubted Mitch Marsh. Never.
Never? No.
Never. I mean, unless you count the 200 or 300 nasty tweets.
Yeah, I dare anyone go back and find 200 tweets.
That's the cut-off point.
Yeah.
But we've never doubted Mitch Marsh or the selectors.
Oh,
you know the worst thing about being 3-zip up?
Yeah.
The selectors have done a very fine job.
See, I've got to, and this is not just protecting everything you and I have ever said,
Yeah.
and pretty much everyone on social media has said, but the jury to me is still out. Oh, well, and here's my point. You could have picked any professional cricketer in Australia against this English side.
That is a very fair point.
I mean, I hope Mitch Marsh goes on to be the player. He's always been picked. His potential he's always picked on.
Yeah.
Like, Steve Smith to me is someone who realises all the potential that the selectors have for the Marshes.
Yeah.
He's actually fulfilled it.
He's delivered on it. Yeah.
Now, Steve... Mitch Marsh is young enough.
Or let's call him by his correct name, Mitchell Marsh. Have you noticed that? He's now Mitchell Marsh. He's not Mitch Marsh anymore.
Now, if he can consistently do this, you know, I mean, he doesn't have to score, you know, 180 odd runs every time, but you know, if he can consistently play well, that's all that's what everyone's always complained about. It's not their ability I mean, it's the fact that they've always had this potential. But they've never fulfilled it. So fulfilling it once, and then his brother's fulfilled it once, but he's 34.
Yeah, well, that's right.
The bit that
he can't be too much longer.
You know, so we've uncovered this new 34-year-old. I mean, it's not like a long-term solution. And on that whacker pitch, everyone was scoring. I mean, that's my... I hate to be the one that says... there is nothing more I would like than to eat my words on Mitch Marsh. He's young enough to sort of...
Yeah.
You know, don't you know what I mean?
Like, I know exactly what you mean.
Everyone's acting like this is...
What you're hoping to do is to be able to come back and give him a good belting again within the next month.
Oh, no. There's nothing more... There's nothing more... Like, being a sports fan and being an armchair expert... And I use the term expert.
Well, they go hand in hand.
Just really an armchair sitter. You're constantly wrong. Sport is the only thing that makes sport interesting is it never goes the way we always think it will go. But to me, the Marsh Brothers, they're not yet there to the point where everyone goes, well, they've proven everyone completely wrong.
No, not completely wrong.
You know.
But, I mean, as you know, when Mitch Marsh got out the other day, our good mate Adam Rosenbach's pointed out on Twitter that typical Mitch Marsh, always wobbly on 181. Well,
I mean, it wasn't. I also think that how bad are England?
Oh, they are shocking.
I mean, how can you lose from the position they were in after the first innings?
Expecting them to be that bad beforehand? I don't think we were.
Well, they're ranked higher than us in a test team, and
they came over here, you know, pretty cock-a-hoop, and it's all going to be a great series. But pretty much from day one of the first test, it's like, geez, they have not. Yeah, and if you talk about the Marsh brothers finally living up to their potential, the English team are the opposite.
Yeah.
They have not lived up to a single thing in this series. They've been awful.
They've all been terrible. I mean, Root's been... He was pretty much our best player the whole way through. Like, his decisions
cannot buy a run.
Cook, he might as well not come.
Yeah.
You could have picked a random backpacker from the Barmy Army. You know, that's when you know you're in trouble.
Some fat bloke in a KFC hat. How'd you come? You're opening the batting, you know.
And it would have been pretty similar outcome.
And your idiot mate, he's taken over from Broad. He's opening the bowling. How bad's Broad been?
Broad was
none
terrible.
For 142 the other day.
That was terrific.
That was just fantastic.
That was, I mean, it had everything you could want. And then, see, it's mixed feelings for Australian cricket fans.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of angst that now the Sydney and the Boxing Day tests are just dead rubbers and pointless. But
people still go.
But mixed with the delight of beating England and humiliating them in the most glorious fashion.
Well, that's right.
Is there anything better than England losing like they've lost?
And,
it's
not just losing. It's how much dramas they've had off the field as well. Mate of mine, we created a new Ashes drinking game where you have to scull a drink every time an English player sculls a drink.
I think they're playing that at the same time.
It's hard work, let me tell you.
It has been amazing. It was the one thing I should say is how good is Steve Smith? I mean,
he's a freak.
He is so reliable.
You could tell this last innings where he made the 239. You could tell about 2 overs in, I reckon. You could just tell by the look in his eye and the way he was stroking it around. I thought, he's going to make 100 here.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you never say bloke's going to look like he's going to make 200.
I thought he could make 200.
Yeah, you picked him as 200 straight up. He's a cracker. And you notice how all the commentary team are pointing out the flaws in his technique, but that is now a plus.
Oh, I'm so sick of them always pointing that out. Like, it just shows... If the supposed flaws there in his technique, then the technique they've been teaching and they all think is right is wrong.
Or if there are that many flaws too in his technique, why can't anybody get him out?
Yeah, that's right.
Can't be that hard.
But you see his hand-eye coordination and his just comfort in. Yeah. I wish I could do anything as well as he can do in the world. It's amazing.
For that whole innings, it was that cliche of seeing him like, watermelons.
Yeah, it was amazing. Jackson Delamont wrote in, and this is the key bit, how terrible do you have to be to go from 4 for 368 in the first innings to lose by an innings?
Gee, that is a good question, isn't it?
That puts it in perspective, whole thing.
They were. You forget. You get to the end of the match, you go, they were just smashed the Poms. But you forget that first day, they were 4 for nearly 500.
Yeah, it looked like it was going to be a draw.
How do you lose from there?
They were talking
but
about
lose by an innings, as
I was listening to the commentary across a bit of Triple M grandstand because I was driving around for bits of this at times, and then also the Channel 9 commentary, and they're all talking on that first and second day. Basically, England have got it to the point where the most likely outcome is a draw.
Yep.
And can they put the foot on the throat of the Aussies and actually get a win out of this? And then that was all the commentary. Yeah. And then you look at it.
3 hours later, it was on the other way around.
It's just over, So you do have to. The answer to that, Jackson, is you have to be absolutely terrible.
Yeah, that's a new level of terribleness.
This came in from Twitter with the Twitter handle "Only Cyril can do that." So thank you, Bruce, for writing in. How have you boys ever had to delay the start of a podcast due to damp patches?
Gonna have to be careful how we answer this.
So it was embarrassing that the pitch was too wet on the last day because basically the covers hadn't been put on properly.
And then I heard someone say yesterday that the reason the covers didn't work properly or weren't put on properly is because they don't have a shed to keep them in at the Wacker.
Right.
Like, surely you just roll them up and put them somewhere under cover.
They need a cover for the covers.
They do need a cover for the covers. and that explains how they weren't put on properly.
Like, this has ever been a problem before?
It would have been a hell of a travesty if they hadn't been able to play the game at all yesterday because of the poor cover technique.
Yeah. Brett Willow-White wrote in, was day 5 at the Wacker the first time a leaf blower has performed a useful function?
Other than waking up your neighbours. Oh, I think you're right on that, Brett.
Not a fan of the old leaf blower.
No. So they had plenty of them at the Wacker, though.
Oh, they did.
Plenty of leaf blowers.
Do you think someone had to do a Bunnings run?
Yeah, they might have been.
The apprentice?
Yeah. The head groundsman would have got the young bloke.
Yeah.
Get down to Bunnings, pick up 5 leaf blowers, and a left-handed spanner,
and a gift card for my uncle for Christmas. Sean wrote in, what would have been more effective of producing hot air, leaf blowers or the Channel 9 commentary team?
Yeah, it's a bit of a predictable one, Sean, but a good question nonetheless.
They could have just stood them all around.
Yeah.
Matthew Stapleton wrote, is it time for the federal parliament to apologise on behalf of the nation to the Marsh brothers?
Oh, look, I think
Jury's still out, mate.
Jury's still out.
That's
I think it's far too early for that.
Some people say I'm being ungracious I probably am.
Look, it took the Australian Parliament nearly 200 years to apologise to the first people of Australia, the Indigenous people.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit early to be going out for the Marshes.
Yeah.
Frankly.
Look, let's just see how we go in the. Consistency is key in cricket.
And do you really want to hear Malcolm Turnbull apologise to the Marshes? He'll get their sport wrong.
It's like saying Ashton A goes for Fieldy's destiny because of that one good innings.
95 in his first innings.
So we've all seen things like this where you go, that guy must be amazing, and then
never seen again.
Yeah. Too Long in the Bush wrote in, does the bloke in the Magellan ad prefer the English Duke ball because he's a wanker or because it has a more prominent seam? We all agree we don't like that guy in the Magellan ad.
No, none of us like him at all. We don't like the ad. We don't like Magellan, quite frankly.
We don't like them, do we?
We don't. Although, it has, as I said a couple of podcasts ago, it has made me want to invest more globally than I normally do.
I'm sure it is. They are... the cricket ads... They just get paid ad nauseum.
I know.
It is.
And you just know the amount of money that's changed hands. The KFC ads and the stupid, the song that they've done.
Yeah.
The Hole in My Bucket. And you know the way they've shot it. It's like the old Qantas.
Yeah, that's
I still call Australia home.
Yeah,
that's the whole point of what they're trying to do. But it's just awful.
I'll put a hole in your bucket.
Yeah.
Travis Walsh wrote in, is winning the Ashes worth it when all you get to celebrate with is the sponsor's Poxy mid-strength beer? I like Poxy. Poxy doesn't get used enough. The thing about it is people... I was thinking about this. I think I tweeted something about this. I was thinking about this last night. I was watching all the photos come through on social media of all the cricketers celebrating.
Yeah.
And I thought, people spend a lot of time in Australia, the news media, our politicians... various pundits, they complain constantly about the threats from outside our country's borders. So they complain about Islam, they complain about immigration, they complain about Donald Trump, all these things, right?
Yeah.
Yet we have allowed mid-strength beer to be served to our nation's cricketers when they've just reclaimed the Ashes, and we're pretending that there isn't a problem at the core of this country.
And it's not even
at the heart of this country.
It's not even just the cricketers. It's the people who love the game. It's people who go to the games. It's the people who pay those cricketers wages. I mean,
mid-strength.
Take it back
4x.
Another step. It's not just being served to victorious Australian cricketers. The fact that mid-strength beer has gained any footing in this country, I mean,
is unbelievable.
I mean, you hear about the Russians interfering with the American election. And you hear about the Chinese influencing Australia. I mean, they pale to insignificance compared to the underhand whoever was behind it.
Well, it's the alcohol companies.
Yeah.
I mean, where is the Royal Commission?
If you can't trust the alcohol companies, who can you trust?
I put all my life's faith into alcohol in this, as they say in The Simpsons, the solution and cause of all my problems. but when I think about this, I'm looking at it and going, this is outrageous, and 4X, it's like... It's not even a good beer to begin with, and then it's a mid-strength version, and this is what we're doing. And what sort of message is this sending to the kids?
Exactly. Have you ever been into one of Australia's great pubs? I mean, the one that springs to mind is, let's say the Beach Hotel in Byron Bay, right?
There's not you can name about. I was just laughing when you said...
You knew what I was going to say.
No, I was laughing at you going, one of the nation's great pub, and as a man who can... You name the town and you'll name the pub. I'm thinking, how's he going to pick one? One out of this. But are you going there in a week or something?
No,
so you need a free beer.
I'm not, but I have put a few away in there. Whenever have you walked into a good pub that has plenty of taps up there? When have you ever heard anyone especially a dead set Australian, walk up the bar and say, mate, give me a schooner of that mid-strength, will you?
But who drinks mid-strength?
Well, exactly.
Because I can understand light beer. I mean, I would never drink it because I'm an Australian, but I understand the point of it because you might be driving.
Yeah.
You know, I understand at least the logic of it. Like it's about...
And of course, as we know, you can have as many light beers as you like and then get behind the wheel.
Yeah,
no problem.
There's no
there.
limit. But then I look at mid-strength, I just go, it seems to only have been invented to serve to the people at stadiums who can't get into the corporate boxes. Yeah. And I look at it and just go, what's the point? And the thing about this is you should be drinking full-strength alcohol now that Uber is so prevalent.
Exactly.
There should be no drinking and driving because there's no excuse not being able to get home anymore. Yeah. Like, you know, there's an app for that.
The mid-strength, as you say, it's too strong to drink and drive with.
Yeah.
And it's too weak to get you properly hammered. What's the point? What is the point?
And it tastes awful.
Yeah.
And especially when it's served at a stadium through those pipes they seem to clean never.
Into a plastic cup or
Can you imagine what the whacker pipes must be when they rip out the beer lines there?
I'd be straight out to Esperance.
One of those, like, would be worse than one of those, like a Roman aqueduct there.
What have those Romans ever done for us?
Got more dust in it than that. So anyway, wrapping up the first test, it was the third test.
Yeah.
I think the beer bit's probably the main bit that's come out of it because England are just...
They're no good. Can they bounce back?
No.
No, I don't think so. I mean, their bowlers can't get Australia out.
Yeah.
And their batting lineup always crumbles at some point, you know, of the innings. When they get off to a good start like they did in that third test, then they lost 6 for 35. They're no good.
The thing these days, though, is we all know while this is like a stunning victory for Australia, we'll go over there next.
Yeah, and probably get pumped. Yeah.
You know, when are they going to fix the... I can't believe with cricket that there isn't one like ball that's used everywhere.
Yeah, you'd think so, wouldn't you? I mean,
it's especially because it seems to make such a huge difference to the outcomes.
Yeah,
like pick one.
You're right. Every country has their own.
What's the point of having a standardised, like an ICC above it all? Like,
well, I mean, there's the standardised size and weight.
Yeah, I know, but they're so different.
They're all made of different leathers and different stitching, and
makes no sense to me. Serge, usually it takes until the beginning of the season for Melbourne to become the laughing stock of the AFL.
I saw you make
but this
that
year
point,
we managed to do it
prior to Christmas.
Before Christmas, which is it's close to a record for us. I think the only time I can compare it is when we had that trip to China a few years ago where everyone was so drunk they barely could front up and play the game, and someone threw up on Tom Scully.
Yeah, and a week later Tom Scully requested a
trade.
To GWS.
Yeah, but what's happened is Melbourne last year, many listeners may remember, did one of those boot camp, or sort of more like the army elite forces
style SAS training
things. And it resulted in, at one point, Dom Tyson was injured, and Jake Melksham also had some injuries from it, and Christian Salem basically knocked himself out when a brick he didn't pack properly, and his backpack fell out and hit him on the back of the head. Which he even admitted he didn't pack it properly. Yeah. So is that
So it's just stupidity, basically.
Anyway, the players decided they didn't want to do it this year, and they approached the AFL Players Association, working out how to approach the club to say, can we not go ahead? How can we get them to not go ahead? And in response, Melbourne said, no, we're not going to do it.
What are your thoughts on this?
Well, unless there's stuff about it I don't know, right?
Yeah.
Unless, say it was run in a way that was shambolic, and so the players might have a legitimate thing saying, we're not against training hard, but that particular camp
was not the answer for these reasons.
It's just terrible, and there were these injuries because of it was run poorly or something, which I'm not aware of, but if that was the case, maybe I could see their point, so that might be what's happening. But on the surface, it looks horrendous.
Yeah,
it looks like it looks like the players couldn't be bothered doing it.
Yeah.
Now, if there were... because, for instance, the Storm, in the NRL, Craig Bellamy is renowned for sending his players every single year on these horrendous SAS-style training camps. And they do it every year. And
they win the premiership every second year.
Yeah, and it's all about the mental pressure on the team. It's more like physically they drain you, but it's more about stuff they do to you mentally.
Physically, these guys should be able to cop whatever's thrown at them.
Yeah, but then on top of it, it's about, finding out who's got the mental toughness. And Cameron Smith and various others have all said it's a big part of why they've personally been successful. So, it's
not a good look.
A bunch of players to go to the AFLPA to say it's sort of like let's get mum or dad to come to argue with the teacher about something,
I think it doesn't look good.
It doesn't look good. And if it was Hawthorn or something, or a team that was known for being very well run, you might go, oh, maybe there's more to it here. But Melbourne just have this reputation. So on top of it,
but all it just looks like the players, have said we don't want to do it, and they've gone above the coach and the club to the AFLPA, who will come out in their defence. And the reports are there were 14 of the senior players went to the AFLPA. It's not just the leadership group. And see, my bit old-fashioned is that I think if the senior coach says you're going on this training camp,
then you're going on the
training camp.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. And I just reckon it just is... As you say, if it had been a Hawthorn or even a West Coast or Adelaide or one of these clubs, if the players have said, look, we don't want to go on this camp for whatever reason, you'd probably cop it sweet. But for Melbourne, it just looks once again that they're either mentally fragile or they're not completely invested in where the club's going.
See, this is where it's been interesting because, and I haven't seen any interviews where this has been clearly explained by the players who I can see an argument if they just said, we'll do an SAS-style camp. Yeah. It's just this one is just run so shambolically. Yeah. We all felt it wasn't like just grueling and tough. It was just amateurish.
Yeah, it was just
now,
pointless.
If that is the case... And that's why there are injuries. I can understand players going, look, I'll train my ass off all through pre-season, but I'm not doing something that could injure me and I miss out on the season. That's stupid. But they haven't really come out and articulated that clearly enough.
And I don't think they will either. I mean, we're just going to have to cop it sweet.
So instead it just looks...
It looks really poor.
Look, if they make the finals and maybe win a final or do a Richmond or something next year, it'll all be forgotten.
Yeah, of course it will.
But they do what they did again this year.
If they miss the finals,
this just ratchets up the pressure. They miss the finals again. It's going to be like,
I mean, and you look at these training camps. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that every club seemed to be going to Kokoda, or every club was going to a high altitude one in North America or something. They've all sort of fallen by the wayside, and these SAS training style camps are like the flavour of the month. But for whatever reason, I reckon it just reinforces the perception of Melbourne of either being soft or not being, fully invested in the club's program or the senior coach.
Well, where the main worry for me is if, and I don't know the order of how it happened, is if the players approached Goodwin and others at the club and got the sense it was going to be a no, so then went to the AFLPA, and that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
If they went to the AFLPA first and then approached Goodwin and Goodwin and that were like, look, if you've got these doubts, we don't mind.
Yeah.
It's less of a it was overkill. They didn't even need to go to the AFLPA. Maybe Goodwin and that shared some of their views. I don't know. So the problem here, though, is if they've just gone above Goodwin and he's the coach, he's got to start looking at these like going, well, mate, one, I'm going to flog you worse than any camp will now.
And B, you reckon we delisted a few this year? There'll be of those 14, there might be 8 of them going next year.
If him moving on Jack Watts the way he didn't send a message that he'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. Look,
So the only defining thing for me that could be of benefit is if they approached the AFLPA because they were just nervous, but when they went to Goodwin saw their point and agreed. So that was less of a betrayal of Goodwin.
But it'd be nice to know, and that's why we're speculating, and everyone will.
Yeah, secondly, is it just because they were worried about the competency of the people running this camp, not the happy to do that SAS style training, send us to the one Bellamy sends us to, or send us to the... But they haven't come out and said any of that, so we don't know.
No, exactly. That's the lack of communication.
Anyway, there'll be plenty of good gags throughout the year out of that.
No doubt, They could have taken their cheese and biscuits with them to their SAS camp.
Now, one thing that I probably got sent this article more than anything else I've ever been sent.
Oh, I was going to say you would. I mean,
I got it on Facebook, Twitter,
we both
email.
got hammering on Twitter for this one. And fair enough too.
A guy called Kevin Arnovitz, who is an ESPN staff writer over in America, so he's American. He wrote an article about how Ben Simmons, who's the basketball, looks like rookie of the year, playing for the Philadelphia 76ers, and looks easily like he's going to be rookie of the year, is from Melbourne, and he wrote a story about how it's his Australian rules background
that's helped him become
a great basketballer.
Which, as we all know, and the reason why everyone's approached you and what have you about it is that it is the complete opposite of what our commentators say about.
Well, they mention basketball background like it's.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't know that one thing that's helped Ben Simmons achieve so much, apart from his Australian rules background in the NBA, is his basketball background.
You put those two together.
Has been of even bigger help.
And the other interesting thing about this is you hear Americans and American sports writers traditionally are not able to analyse AFL football in any competent way because it is just so foreign to them and they don't get the subtleties or see the big... But what Kevin Arnovitz wrote about Australian football was probably as good as an analysis of the game as you've ever read.
It's a good article.
He absolutely got it right.
I'm still a bit suspicious of how much... I mean, I think the one thing is, if there's one thing to take away from the article is, and all the research have shown this, is never get your kids to specialise too early.
Yeah.
That actually playing lots of sports actually helps them develop in the other sports until their natural skills and talents tends to make one stand out. But I am always a bit suspicious about how much we attribute their basketballing background or their AFL background to them. But I mean, Ben Simmons is a freakishly gifted athlete that probably would have been good at any sport you almost gave him to play.
He's the sort of guy, you put a golf club in his hand and he'd be playing off 3 next week.
Yeah.
He's that kind of guy.
Yeah, it's just... And then his body shape and everything lends itself to... I mean, I've often thought, though, Jordan, I remember saying once that they asked him what sport he thinks would be fun to play, and he said Aussie rules. He thought it would suit his talents. And you look at a lot of those NBA players...
Yeah.
They would. I mean, there are similarities.
Yeah, they're fast. They've got good hands. They're strong.
But thank you, everyone, for sending that through. Because that was...
Glad we've got to the bottom of that.
One thing you liked a lot was it was about a round ago now, but the A-League had their Star Wars round.
How lame was this?
Well, in fairness, the A-League, other comps have done this before. And the AFL did it. Do you remember the AFL had a Star Wars round?
Did they?
Yeah, they did. And they had stormtroopers at games. It was a couple of years ago. There's photos of it, yeah. And it was lame as. Like, they had Darth Vader, tossing the coin and he just made it hover in air using the Force for 4 hours. But there are all sorts of things that, so it's always a bit lame when I've seen these be done.
Yeah.
But the thing about the A-League is it was one of the lowest attended A-League rounds ever. Nothing to do, I think, with it actually being Star Wars round. Yeah. But there was quite a few images of, stormtroopers and everything. In the background was just empty stands.
Empty seats. And at one point, one of the games, lined up on the sideline, there was stormtroopers and there was, who's the Wookiee and
your knowledge of Star Wars is...
I've never seen Star Wars.
You've never seen Star Wars?
Never seen the film.
None of them?
No, I saw one of them.
Which one?
I can't remember. The one that had the chariot race in the middle.
Oh, not the Phantom Menace.
Yeah, it could have been.
That's the worst one.
Well, I reckon this new one's the worst one.
I don't know. Some people reckon it's the best, one of the best. It's very divisive, the new one. We can go into great detail on that if you want, but it's
so
where it fits
what's wrong with the world.
In the Star Wars canon.
Where Star Wars is divisive, you know. It divides families, you know.
There are,
especially leading into Christmas.
There are
we
more
don't
people,
need that kind
there
of
are
controversy.
more people that understand the socio-economic, political kind of issues in the Star Wars universe better than there are ones in their own world that could give you, you know, and act like you're a moron if you don't understand all of it.
That is true. But as you say, the A-League Star Wars round was as lame as you can possibly get. Do you think the AFL next year will bring in the Goombaya Park round?
What's the lamest movie they could actually, you know, match it up with? That's the thing. Like, you've got to have one where...
Maybe that new one with Kylie Minogue. You know, Swinging Safari.
What movie's that?
It's coming out in January.
I like how that's the one you know about.
It looks tragically bad. It's written and directed by Stephen Elliott, who you have to say, in music terms, is a one-hit wonder. He did Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, years ago, which was a cracker, and he's never quite lived up to that. He also did, I don't know if you ever saw Welcome to Whoop Whoop.
I never...
Possibly the worst Australian movie ever.
I never... Well, that's a fair claim, too.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's got some competition there.
No, I've never seen that.
His new one,
I know of it.
Swinging Safari, looks like it's going to be as bad as that.
Really?
Yeah, so maybe the AFL can get on board.
Dream.
Maybe AFLX could have a Swinging Safari round.
That seems to be the place for it.
Dresses in 70s gear and tosses their keys into the
I'm still reeling
basket.
that you haven't seen the Star Wars movies.
Never saw the first one.
Yeah.
And it became...
What about your kids? Are your kids seen it?
Nah.
Really?
No, not the first one. But the thing with Star Wars, when it came out, I never saw it, and it became that cultural phenomenon, and I was like the only one amongst all my friends who hadn't seen it. So therefore, I made a point of not seeing it.
Yeah, right.
You know, so I can sort of go on record now and say I've never seen Star Wars.
You rebel, you.
Yeah, that's a rebel without a cause.
Boys, it paid off. One thing that came out this week, and the Herald Sun had this story, which was quite interesting, is in 1988, and we have to go back a bit. 1988 was when the VFL...
29 years ago.
Yeah, getting close to becoming the AFL, were really in dire straits. They didn't have a lot of money.
A lot of the clubs were close to going under.
And a big reason they wanted to expand, and the reason the Eagles and Brisbane came in, is they offered to pay fairly big licence fees. I think it was about $2 million each, which was distributed to the Victorian clubs, a fair chunk of it. Yeah. So that's, you know, so they were just so desperate to find money. And they were also throwing around, therefore, all kinds of ideas.
Yeah, new ways to raise
and capital. One that was kind of interesting that came up, the Herald Sun found, and actually went to the board back then. So this isn't some, like, on the side idea.
This was pre the AFL Commission, but they did have a board which sort of worked the same, similar way.
They had an idea for a team relocating a Victorian team to Los Angeles Coliseum or the Rose Bowl in Pasadena and call it the LA Crocodiles.
Of course. But which team would have gone, do you reckon?
Well, they didn't really say. I think it didn't get to that stage. The submission that went to the VFL Commission in September 1987, and it was rejected a month later outright, so it only got so far, looked at the idea of relocating just an existing Melbourne team to Los Angeles in time for the 1988 season. Yeah. The formal submission was presented to the VFL Commission in September 1987. It was proposed that what would happen is they would basically go and play overseas. They would go overseas. Teams would rotate going and playing over there and go on a sort of a mini
3
tour.
or 4 game sort of blocks.
And then they would fly back out here for 6 weeks and play a bunch of games and then go back. So they'd be based here and they'd base there. They also said one of the things they'd do is recruit in the main young players to lessen homesickness. So, I mean, Brisbane...
Oh, they're ahead of their
Brisbane
time.
Lions be rolling their eyes at that one. Like, that really works well, the young kids.
But they reckon, I mean, apart from the fairly large assumption that the people of Los Angeles would give a toss and actually go to the games, one of the interesting things about this is that they reckon they had a fair amount of corporate money backing this.
Well, Continental Airlines, I think it was.
We're going to toss in all the flights.
We're thinking of supporting it in some way.
And there are other corporates who are going to put up plenty of cash.
The other thing that said is jumpers would be so any club that did decide to relocate, if they did, they would have their debt wiped and all this sort of stuff. So that was why they were trying to appeal to it. Jumpers would also be redesigned, but the existing colours of whatever team it was going to be would be retained. Off-field, players would be dressed in an Australian theme. Example, Akubra hats.
Well, that'll get him in.
So imagine that you're sent to LA as an AFL player, and you get made to dress in like what, a dry as a bone and a Cooper hat.
Yeah, some moleskins, some R.M. Williams. You got to have a knife on your belt. Puka shells
You're
around your
basically
neck.
told you have to dress like Crocodile Dundee.
Exactly. That's everyone, including the coaching staff.
So, like, how that idea got to the...
How that ever flew.
I understand pitching out their ideas occasionally because that's what you do, and sometimes they'll come off or they might lead to a more sensible, but this one, like, how someone sat down and wrote it all, and how is it ever going to work? The travel alone, anyone that's done that flight knows. It's
a hell of a flight from, Melbourne to LA. They didn't even have direct flights back then.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so you would have had to have flown into Sydney and then probably go Sydney to Honolulu to LA. Oh, what a nightmare it would have been.
There's just nothing. I mean, we're no further along.
A great for end-of-season trips, but,
Yeah. It makes China look incredibly sensible.
Yeah, it does.
So, anyway, I thought that was hilarious.
Kotze would have been all over this if he'd been around back in the day.
Oh, yeah, he would have loved it. Can you imagine? That's just... And LA teams... I mean... NFL teams fail in LA like nothing else.
Exactly, they're like the Gold Coast.
LA's a terrible place for a sports team.
It is. It's so spread out. I mean, the only sports team, the Lakers have always had a pretty good following.
Yeah.
And the LA Dodgers. But their baseball stadium is reasonably simple to get to, and it's got
but
a history.
The NFL have struggled. The Raiders struggled there. The Rams struggled there.
Back. I mean, there was the LA Rams, and then
now the Chargers have gone there, and they can barely even draw 5 people to a game. The Chargers
are going back to San Diego next year.
Well, that's been a rumour.
Yeah, I think that
it's
may
been such
happen.
a disaster. The move. So anyway. Going from one crazy idea to another, the AFL tribunal system is going to have a big shake-up in 2018. The way I see it is, replacing one system of inconsistency with another.
Yeah. Interestingly, the one thing that they really want that apparently they've never been able to achieve is consistency. So by changing everything, we'll be more consistent.
The new head of football operations, Steve Hocking, announced that they were changing it completely. Instead of having the match review panel and all that, they're just going to have one person.
Yep.
Which I don't think you can have a one-person panel.
Nah.
Michael Christensen. So it's good to have a Collingwood. Christian, sorry. It's good to have a Collingwood, ex-Collingwood player.
A former Collingwood premiership player.
He'll be the single decision maker, and he'll liaise directly with Hocking, who will sign off on each incident. So basically, they've come up with a way of... I mean, they've given up the pretense that this is in any way a separate judiciary to the AFL.
Yeah.
Because before it was very much...
They were trying to pretend that it was independent.
Yeah.
Which everyone knew.
It wasn't really.
At all. Yeah.
And so now it's not even it's really not even pretending.
No. Just,
because Hocking will sign off.
He's just another
Hocking will say yes or no.
AFL employee.
Yep. And
answering to a more senior AFL employee in Steve Hocking.
So that's... I mean, the only thing you wonder... I mean, look, it could be worse. It could not be. Who knows? But the thing about it is you wonder... At least maybe having one person makes it more consistent.
Perhaps.
But then we all know we can all be pretty inconsistent in our decision making.
Old Chris O, he's a good bloke, Chris O, but I mean, he's going to be under a fair bit of hammer here.
Good bloke, Chris O. Are we on Triple M? Under the new system...
and I don't think we ever will be.
Under the new system, if you appeal, you're not likely to get an extra week, it's just going to cost your club $10,000. So that's,
there's no 1 week off for an early guilty plea.
Yeah, there's none of that sort of stuff anymore. One thing I do like about this new thing is incidents that occur on Thursday or Friday match will be reviewed quickly and the decision will be handed down within 24 hours.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And they're also looking at making it a 24-hour rule for all games in the future. But I guess with so many on Saturday and Sunday,
yeah, you're going to have to give him a bit of time.
Yeah.
He's going to have to
got to see his kids occasionally.
He's going to have 3 or 4 different Foxtel machines going at one time to
record
all the games.
I like how we have the ability now to just hate one person. Like, it's the worst job in football.
And he is a former Collingwood player.
Oh, yeah.
So that makes it easier.
Anyway, just wait till a Collingwood player goes up and gets a soft...
Yeah.
He's always going to have to go harder on the Collingwood players.
Well, he's going to have to. I mean, yeah. It's a very good point. I hadn't thought of that, but you're right.
The conspiracy theorists will be going nuts.
Well, what if a week before... What if Collingwood are about to play in a final and the week before one of their players does something, and Chris O gives them a $1,500 fine instead of 3 weeks. That's what we want to see.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll tell you what one of the good things about this is that Chris O is giving up all his media commitments.
Yeah.
Now, I don't mean that's a good thing because
and you just thought, why can't Terry Wallace get this gig?
I don't mean that by saying that he's no good in the media, but there was always, this was part of the problem.
You mean there was always a conflict?
Yeah, with the match review panel. I mean, you had, Daniel Harford, good bloke half. But he's doing a radio show, a primetime radio show.
And then have to be
being judgment of the players. It just always looked was a bad look to me. So, but you're right. Why couldn't the list manager have got this gig?
It's never going to be anything but inconsistent.
No.
Because
that's part of the game.
They're never quite the same, the incidences, or very rarely. Secondly, it changes because, and you can't cut this out, is the community view, the footy community view, whether it's the administration, the clubs, or the fans, regularly change over time, even over seasons, how much something should be penalised. So if you're the first to do something, you might get a lighter sentence, but if there's like 10 of those incidents that start happening, like say it's a chicken wing tackle, if you're the 4th person to do it, you are going to cop a much bigger one.
Well, we saw it this year.
It happens with punching and stuff like that. We saw it
this year with jumper punches and sling tackles.
Yeah, and because it didn't stop, they just kept ratcheting up.
At the start of the year, nobody mentions jumper punches or sling tackles, and then they started coming in and, even...
And the first few
Gil McLaughlin came out and said jumper punches have got to go.
Yeah, and then the first few suspensions, even though they were hefty, didn't stop people, so they just kept ratcheting them up and saying what's going to be worse now.
And so
that's why it's never inconsistent.
And the new sheriff, good bloke Chris O, has already said that the hardest thing he's going to have to adjudicate next year probably is sling tackles.
Right.
He's already come out and said that. He's already preempted how inconsistent he's going to be in his deliberations.
Getting to the listeners' questions, Gavin Howley wrote, "Can Serge give us a wait for age style explanation of how Bitcoin works?"
Oh, thanks for that, Gavin. Look, if I had $1 for every time I asked myself, what is Bitcoin?
If you had a Bitcoin for every time.
I'd be as rich as if I had bought Bitcoin 8 years ago. But look, to answer your question, Gav, Bitcoin is a digital currency, which is
an anonymous digital currency.
Is an anonymous digital currency, which when it's analysed online, is reflective of the age of the horse that you last bet on and lost on. Not the horse that you bet on and won. Not Winks and the Cox Plate. The last horse you bet on and did your pants.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the equivalent of Bitcoin. I hope that clears things up.
That's crystal clear. Dread Pirate Roberts has written in, "Did St Kilda hire Simon Lethlean because Ivan Milat was unavailable?" I like that because you've mentioned Ivan Milat more on this podcast than a true crime podcast about Ivan Milat.
That is true.
So I couldn't believe... No, that's the wrong way to start this. I could completely believe that Simon Lethlean is already back in.
Oh, yeah. I'm surprised it took him that long, quite frankly. But what do you think about St Kilda putting their hand up? That's got to be,
Oh, there are so many things that are. I mean, it's
his first job to get the Saints disco back.
There are just so many
Saturday nights
things
in the Saints disco.
There are so many things with this that is just the continual. Like, is there any other? I mean, there are other industries like it. It's just once you're in for life.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It just. I mean, and I'm not saying Simon Lethlean's the worst of the worst or
deserves
sneaky
to never
clean.
get a job again.
Well,
but,
but I mean, read the mood of the room. Right now we're going through this period where every day thousands of stories are coming out about how women feel and are harassed and disempowered and not listened to and blah blah.
Exactly.
It's just a torrent of it, and finally you feel like society's listening and maybe going somewhere with it, and people that do this stuff are actually going to be held to account. And this is just this perfect example going, yeah, but he's a good bloke.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he should necessarily be the one to get all the vitriol of everything that's beyond what he even did. But, he several times slept with a junior employee. Now, people say, well, that's fine, whatever. But, the thing that the world's trying to say is, no, it's not fine because it's an abuse of power. It's not about it's not about sex. It's about power. It's like if I told a junior employee to put pressure on them to do something like change an invoice or pay on their credit card or other mine. So, there's a range of things that this is about, and that's what it's about.
I mean, I still reckon it wouldn't have hurt either Simon Lethlean, the AFL, or whichever club wanted to hire him to have another year out of the game. You could have come back then. It wouldn't have mattered quite so much. That doesn't mean the time off obliterates what you may or may not have done.
But it takes away what the AFL did, because the AFL, and this is when Gillen came out and straight away, they go, what he did was such an... And this is the AFL saying this, not even like me, right? The AFL said, what he did was such a big breach of trust and what we expect of our leaders that he can no longer be employed here.
Yeah, he had to go.
So that was what they say. And then they go, but it'd be great if a club picked him up.
2 minutes later, Gillen came out and said, but he won't be lost to football.
And there's no way if the AFL didn't want him at St Kilda would have...
Yeah. That is very true.
That's the other thing. So this is... So, I mean, it turns the AFL into what was seen as, and you could argue a very strong decision, into being absolute hypocrites.
Wait till Hawthorn start turning the soil at Dingley and they've got Don Burke as their project manager. How's that going to go?
Oh, it would not surprise me. So anyway, it's just one of those ones, and I think St Kilda, when they've worked pretty hard to get past their previous culture issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll wait and see on that one, but it just what I think the important thing, and you made the point of it there, it just reinforces that in a general sense, in the AFL industry, as opposed to just sporting industries at once, is that you can just about, you're in it for life, as you say. You can do just about anything and be brought back.
But the thing that's amazing about it is the AFL saying, what he did was terrible, but he's a really good bloke, so we don't really want to actually we don't want it to be too harsh.
Yeah, but we don't think he should be lost to the game.
And it's like, all right, well, it's obviously not that big a deal then. Which is fine. Like, the thing that bothers me most is that they try and have both. They try and pretend that they're on the high moral ground, then they turn around and do that, like...
You're right.
It doesn't work at all. And you watch every time St Kilda now come out and do some we're for equality and we're for women.
Yeah.
You go, really?
Yeah.
You kind of lost that. You kind of lost that by doing this.
Yeah.
Rodders wrote in, is there any chance Channel 10 will relentlessly promote a particular show during the Big Bash, and are you sick of it already?
Oh, Rodders, I think you're... Is there any chance they will do that? Well, yeah, there is every single chance.
Well, it's going to be the Jungle show
Of course, I was about to say it'll be the Jungle, because they're already tossing up names and they're pretty clever like this. Is they leak out.
Like, you been asked yet?
No, not as yet. No, not as yet. We should both go.
Oh God, no. Yeah. Although I was talking about this to someone the other day. The only thing that would make me ever watch a reality TV show is if, like, say, The Bachelor.
As if you were on it.
Well, but like someone who was sent there and for what maybe some contractual reason or judiciary, like, you know, sentenced by a court against their will.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just like, this is ridiculous. You guys are idiots. Like, that would be the only thing that would make me. It was like
when Larry Emder had to host Celebrity Dog School. He only exactly did that because like he was contracted by Channel 7.
It's exactly like that. I like how your mind instantly goes to that. It says a lot about you. Liam Ahern wrote, I watched the cricket show online. How do I clear my metadata? That's not something you want people to know about in the future.
Liam, you've got no sympathy from me, son, because you watched the cricket show.
The cricket show, really. We talked about this the other day. Yeah. It is terrible. I won't go into all the reasons. Well, it sort of speaks for itself.
I did hear a bit the other day, just before they went to the lunch. They came back and they were interviewing Michael Clark about something, and Michael Clark used the phrase, "in my era." Did you hear that?
No.
Mate, you retired 15 months ago. In my era. Mate,
oh, God. I won't miss Clark. If he ever moves on, God. Ilario Finnis wrote in, is 2017 the best year because the Crows lost the grand final, or the worst because Richmond won the grand final?
See, nothing pleases you, Ilario, does it?
And that's what we like about you.
Yeah, exactly.
You fit right into it.
Yeah. You're not happy with either of those things.
No. Richmond supporters, even today on Twitter, I saw about 8 tweets of Richmond supporters still celebrating.
Yeah, I'm over it. I'm over Richmond supporters.
I feel two ways. I'm like, my initial reaction was that, but then I thought, God, I'd be just as bad. Like, I don't blame them. Like, after, I mean, because this is like all the jokes, it's like if we suddenly won the premiership after our regular humiliation and been the butt of everyone's joke for years. I mean, I had to concede that good on them, I would be still pretty...
See, I was getting really annoyed the other week about the Richmond supporters who wouldn't shut up about it. Yeah. And I said to someone, look, the Bulldogs supporters didn't go on about it for this long. Which they pointed out, well, there's more Richmond supporters than Bulldog supporters. So
the Bulldog supporters did go on, because I caught up with Danny McGinlay the other day.
Yeah.
He was still going on about it. Yeah. It's like the Richmond one. He hasn't re-engaged with football since... He's still drunk from the 2016 one. He hasn't been home yet. No. The police are actually looking for him. Shamish G wrote in. This one's
sounds like a rap name, doesn't it?
This is aimed very much at you. Would the swing have been bigger in the Bennelong by-election if John Alexander campaigned with a really large tennis racket? That spaces into your theory that a large prop is always better. Big props are
always funnier.
Yeah. No, you should do it. That'd be great.
And you could have seen on the coverage him hitting one of those really giant tennis balls, and Christina Keneally would have been a great graphic that Channel 9 could have had on their coverage.
I tell you what, politicians, when they do big props occasionally, they're never really that good.
Any time they try and act like normal humans or, try and be funny, it just never works.
No, they're terrible.
No.
Absolutely terrible.
No.
They're not normal.
Well...
And I'm talking across, and this is something I would say across every political party.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what.
This is not an ideological view.
What side you're on?
Because who would go into politics?
I was about to say you have to be fundamentally flawed as an individual to even want to go into politics. I rest my case, Your Honour.
Just drove a truck through them all. It's like, great. Graham Jenkins, last question of the year. What has been the point of 2017? It's a fair question.
It's a very good question, not one that's easy to answer at this point.
Has it been a good year for you, would you say, looking back?
Looking back, not overly. Not in any great shape.
Nothing to write home about?
Nothing to write home about,
I've got to say...
It was a disaster.
Apart from Richmond supporters...
Yeah.
It's probably been not the best year for a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've got a lot of friends who are Richmond supporters, and good luck to them.
You don't really, do
Since the end of September, they've had a great time, and good luck to them. But you're right. For anyone else, has anyone else had a good 2017?
I mean, winning the Ashes was nice, but then England was so bad. England was so bad, it actually took a bit of the luster off the win.
Well, that's right. I mean, it's
like
candy off a baby kind of thing.
It's like beating the kids in backyard cricket.
Yeah.
You know, it's fun.
Yeah.
But,
and you know,
when you're lying in bed at night thinking about how you wouldn't let them...
And you think,
get a bat.
maybe I shouldn't have come off the long run.
when two of them have got injuries and you batted all day and wouldn't let them go inside.
And you use a real ball.
Took a lot of the...
With 5-year-olds.
You know, that's basically what England were.
Yeah, that's true. They were absolute cannon fodder.
Anyway, well, I'm looking forward to 2018.
Yeah, it's got to be better. As Graham's pointed out, it's got to be better than this year.
Oh, I don't know. Everyone said that at the end of 2016.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Oh, you know. Well, at least we're going to have a break for a few weeks because we're going on one of those SAS training camps.
We're going on an English cricket team Kentucky tour
with the Barmy Army.
Well, you're going to be away. You're going to be away till end of Jan, aren't you? So
middle
Jan. So we'll be back then.
We'll be back middle to late Jan.
Well, to all our listeners, our supporters especially, who have stuck with us all throughout the year, we've really appreciated it. And everyone, I hope you have a good Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah, and absolutely. And everyone who came to the live shows all around the country this year.
That's right.
Everyone who's downloaded and listened to this stupid podcast at any particular time.
Stupid podcast.
But especially if you do it week in, week out, we thank you greatly.
Yes, thank you for all the questions throughout the year too. Oh, we haven't announced the winner of the questions, which would have been the perfect ending for us.
To forget about it.
You got one you like?
Oh, look, I think the first question we got today is probably, it's not particularly funny, but I think
insightful.
It's the most insightful one I've had from a fair while.
This is Jackson Delamont.
How terrible do you have to be to go from 4 for 368 in the first innings to lose by an innings?
I just like someone called Jackson Delamont. That is
cracker
a great name.
He sounds like he was probably a Confederate general back in the day. Defending the Alamo.
I think you've mixed up your wars there.
The Alamo, the Civil War.
They're all the same.
They're all the same over there in the States. They all have a basketball background, those wars.
Some of the greatest Confederate generals had basketball backgrounds.
But not Custer. That was his downfall.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway, we will see you next year. Have a great Christmas, great New Year's.
Yeah, have a good time, everyone. Have a great and safe Christmas and New Year's. We'll see you then.